There is a panic in Hollywood right now. Executives are freaking out because Gen Z is not watching the shows that they make for them.
Yeah, we read an article about this in the Inkler by Whitney Friedlander. It talks all about this right now and how basically the industry is blaming attention spans on TikTok. We think it's the crisis of authenticity.
Yeah, and so today we're going to talk about the formula, why it's broken. We're going to talk about how you can't engineer cool in a boardroom, and we're going to talk about why it's actually the golden age for creators like ourselves.
Welcome to the life we create.
So we're reading this article in the Ankler, and it really starts out kind of talking about I Love LA and
Mhm.
how that's one of the few shows designed for Gen Z that's actually cutting through. That show, adults and overcompensating. It
Mhm.
says those are the three right now that are really that are these sort of friend comedies that
Yeah.
are breaking through. And the article kind of talks about why it thinks Gen Z is having trouble connecting to a lot of the content that's made for them.
Yeah, well, I feel like the article largely kind of talks about, execs not really understanding the reason why they're not getting like the friend sitcom thing as successful as they would like
Mhm.
for Gen Z. And it feels like, I don't know, maybe it's falling on deaf ears or something. I mean, we'll get into it, but yeah, basically they're talking about how Gen Z likes to watch archived shows or like older library nostalgic libraries, but nothing really current is like hitting like some of those, Friends, How I Met Your Mother, etc.
Yeah, yeah. So it really talks about the sort of love and work type sitcoms. Like you mentioned, Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Living Single. These shows that are focused on basically somebody in the crew having like a life changing moment. Whether it's a baby or getting married, getting a new job, it's sort of the friend dynamic changing and how the
Hmm.
friends deal with that and continue to grow and develop.
Yeah.
New Girl, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Where Gen Z's watching those shows, but the ones that are modern that are made for them, they're kind of like, man, whatever. And so it talks about I Love LA, which it admits is not like the home run yet,
Yeah.
but that it's something that that Gen Z is paying attention to.
Hmm.
And it's funny because that show, Rachel Sennott, when she talks about it, I hear her say how it's really inspired by shows like Insecure and Girls. She talks a lot about Lena Dunham being a real inspiration to her. And you could see it in that show quite a bit. Uh, so I'm not surprised that it's finding an audience within Gen Z.
It's a very niche audience.
Well,
Which I
that's
think helps,
yeah,
for sure. So they're like kind of cracking away at something there because largely that's what the article also gets at is like a lot of these shows are lacking specificity and
yeah.
trying to appeal to too broad of the Gen Z audience.
Yeah, and so the author Whitney Friedlander asks, "Is Gen Z worth the chase?" And a lot of execs seem to think that it's not. You've got a couple execs that are like talking about the fact that they aren't going to focus on Gen Z. They're going to just continue to do what they've always done, and Gen Z will fall in line. Which that's a choice.
Yeah. And they're also claiming like TV isn't keeping up with the culture like as quickly.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like there's definitely something there with that because their culture does move so quickly on, tech and on the screens that we're all using, but they're targeting Gen Z right now. But um, there is something to that because I feel like there is a part of Hollywood that isn't really trying to keep up with some of the culture by having the present culture in there
Right.
prominently. Writers' rooms, stuff like that.
Yeah, representation always
Yeah.
an issue.
Mhm.
Um, and in the article, they talk about kind of what shows are streaming like that are being watched by 18 to 34-year-olds. And it's funny, you look at these and, the most watched is Family Guy, followed by Bob's Burgers, followed by Grey's Anatomy, and then American Dad, then Bluey, SpongeBob. Like, it's outside of Bluey, it's like stuff that we were all watching
Yeah.
when we were younger.
Gilmore
Mhm.
Girls, Friends, South Park,
Yeah, yeah.
been a hit for a minute.
But none of these shows are shows really that were made in the last couple years.
Mhm. Yeah.
And, it's some of the execs that talk about stuff in here, like one exec was talking about how you couldn't make friends today, because if you did, Chandler would just be on his phone the whole episode,
Out
because
of
that's
touch.
yeah, because that's how his kids are, and they're 20, and that's how they act, and I'm just like, well, there's no better way to say I'm out of touch with what's happening,
Yeah.
than to make a comment like that. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Probably on their phones because they don't wanna engage with you, my guy.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Right. Um,
but they're like, it's basically they're finding that, there's this gap of what they've always done of, like, polished, formulaic type stuff is not really hitting with Gen Z that's seeming to want, messy, chaotic, and raw, real moments.
yeah, and so that's that authenticity that we're talking about. And so that's kind of the brief of the article. And what we want to do is kind of talk about it. Let's get into really the thoughts about why we think Gen Z is not connecting with what's coming out on TV. And you started it there a second ago, with just authenticity. These shows don't feel realistic, to a lot of people. The experiences don't feel realistic.
Mhm.
With I Love LA, I'll say, because it's got right now two audiences. It's got one audience that hates it because they're
Mhm.
like, this is nothing like LA. And while I agree that it's not the overall
Mhm.
vision of LA, I do think it's a very niche, specific type of person. And
Mhm.
I think that's why it's cutting through in the way that it
Yeah.
is because it is very specific. We all know the person that moved here from somebody else, from somewhere else, sorry, that is a fabricated identity.
Uh-huh. Well, I love that, a person she references in there says, I think it's working right now because of the influencer chasing clout era.
Mhm.
That's very much, in LA.
It's very realistic, I think about how many
Yeah.
times I've been to Soho House and people I've interacted with, and I'm just like, "Alright. You're
I
not
know.
a real human being."
Yeah.
But,
Just the
like
amount of people that are like, I know people exactly like that
right, right.
character.
But, like, I've heard a lot of people say, in regards to that, I've heard people say, or get angry because they're like, "That's not LA." And while I don't think it is an accurate representation of, the realness of LA,
The
I do think
expansiveness LA.
yeah, I do think it really touches on a very specific experience, and that is the idea. That's the type of content you want to create. I think of another show that's doing really well, The Chair Company, and while that's not geared towards Gen Z, it
Yeah.
is a very niche type of comedy, and because of that, I think it's having such a high level of success because it is very specific. You're getting something that you've not really seen before outside of Tim Robinson and his type of comedy,
Yeah.
and that's what people want. They want these creators who have a certain style
Mhm.
or certain vision, and that feels authentic to them.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and even, when you mentioned creators, that's why well, one, I think that's why I Love LA is working because it does really speak to, the certain types of creators that, Gen Z has gravitated toward. Um, and they are also watching a lot of these creators off of TV, like in real time. Like that's what they're craving, essentially, from what I've learned.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
YouTube and, anywhere they can see it like live on a platform, they want the real deal. And I do think I Love LA kind of has that like, oh, following influencer vibe, someone trying to make it in this era. I think that's why it's working.
Yeah, when she said that some of the inspirations were Insecure and Girls, I think about in Insecure, that was a show that was really about a person's attempt to survive and thrive. And I
Yeah.
think that is what a lot of people are looking for. And they do want these characters that feel relatable, that are
Mhm.
going through something that we could see ourselves within.
So I think the other thing that was really interesting about the article is the section where Whitney talks about narcissistic youth is never out of style.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she references some things. I didn't get to watch Liar. That was one of the more recent ones
Yeah.
with Stephanie
70
Sue.
Sue. Yeah.
Yeah. But she does reference the Bee in Apartment 23.
Hmm.
I personally loved that. I was
Yeah.
really upset that it got canceled so early. And that's like another thing. There's a lot of these shows where they're actually not given time to hit with these audiences
Hmm.
because, trying to make money, what's working, ratings, and all that stuff. But there is a lot of good stuff, but it's really not given a lot of time to resonate with these audiences because it's just, you know, first glance not making the money they want it to make.
Yeah. I mean, we've been in that era for a minute now where TV shows are getting canceled at the first sign of slowness. Very few are getting the opportunity to make it to a third season, where typically you have a show really find itself
Mhm.
after a few seasons and really get into its stride.
Yeah.
And that is an interesting thing because what do you expect to happen? I think we all want something to be a home run immediately,
Yeah.
but some things take time to find its audience. And in the article, she references Pin 15 and how
Mhm.
when that show was running, it was at a period of time where Hulu was trying to buy a lot of original IPs so it could release and build out its catalog.
Mhm.
And because of that, it benefited because it flew under the radar. So Hulu was focusing on all these other shows. It wasn't paying attention to how Pen 15 wasn't extremely impactful right away. And because of
Mhm.
that, it got time to find its audience.
Mhm. Yeah, they were just more focused on expensive projects at the time, so that show kinda it got its little moment in garnering an audience.
Mhm.
And it actually reeled in a lot of millennials because of the nostalgia factor um, I felt like it was pushing boundaries in certain ways.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It was more risky.
you got 2
Yeah.
grown adults playing middle schoolers, and they're
Acting with a
actually
middle
yeah,
schooler.
they're actually being the middle schoolers, and the rest of the kids are middle schoolers. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun to watch that, because it
Mhm.
was unlike anything else on TV at the time.
Yeah.
So it had this original, authentic quality to it.
Yeah. And that is the juggle I think that Hollywood often does. It's like, you know, they're trying to make the most and get the biggest ROI out of everything.
Mhm. Right. From an executive standpoint, it is
Yeah.
all about the bottom dollar, uh, and
Mhm.
that's not hard to understand. I mean, you look at shows, a pilot for a show costs millions of dollars.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of money
Mhm.
to be spending for something
Yeah.
to not do well.
Yeah.
And so you start thinking about it from that perspective. It's not hard to understand why, shows aren't given the time to find its audience.
Yeah.
But you have hits and misses. I think about Seinfeld, another show that the first season didn't really work. So they revamped like the whole
Mhm.
show, and it became one of the best shows of all time.
Yeah.
And that was a show that had it come out today may not have made it to the second season.
No, because they actually had time. That's what I was going to touch on actually. They had time to receive the feedback and like adjust and
Hmm.
like find their footing and find the groove like you're saying. And I feel like yeah, now it's like maybe they don't have as much time to really get all the feedback they need to make those moves, you know?
Yeah, and I think, with Seinfeld, it had a star attached to it. So,
Mhm.
when you've got a star attached to a project, you give it a little bit more time in
Mhm.
some cases.
Yeah. Cuz we were talking about this earlier too. And I was like, Well, in these rooms, in these boardrooms, are these execs heavily relying on, you know, AI before the show, to test the show
For sure,
before
for
the show
sure.
really gets out there,
Yeah.
and how does that affect things? Um, yeah, it's just interesting times because there really is a difference in landscape, I think.
Well, I do think the fast moving nature of life has an effect on it. AI, 100%, I'd say,
Mhm.
is playing a part in breaking down data to determine whether or not is it likely to take off.
Yeah.
I think that's 100% a thing that's happening. Um,
And
but
maybe they're overcompensating with that.
but you know, I think with Gen Z specifically, you look at content creators on YouTube and on TikTok, and it is these quick moving trends. Something that is the biggest thing in the world today is non-existent tomorrow.
Mhm.
And that's very difficult for television to keep up with, especially when a show comes out months after it was filmed.
Yeah.
Trying to stay in the now when you're already coming out behind is
Mhm.
is almost impossible to do.
Yeah.
So I'd say that definitely has a part in it. Which, when the creators were talking about adults, one thing they
I
said
say that, yeah.
is the way they combat that is they've kind of created their own language, their own sort of slang and jokes and,
Mhm.
and references for things. And Friends did the same thing. So
Mhm.
that's a clever way of dealing with the speed of traditions, or sorry, trends,
Yeah.
but that's not a new thing.
Mhm.
I do think it's going even back to what you said at the beginning. Those content creators, there is a level of rawness and chaos
Mhm.
that comes from that content.
Like the lived in experience of a creator and like,
Mhm.
their experience of dating in real time and
Right.
all that stuff is very attractive.
And that's, I think, what this all comes it down to when we talk about the
Yeah.
authenticity. It's even the risk of being authentic. That's where we think the crisis is coming from.
Yeah.
And we also think
Mhm.
when we're talking about how Hollywood is stuck, um, it's because they're afraid to take risks. And when we talk about risk, for us, I think about Brain Juice Coffee.
Mhm.
That is our coffee brand that we started from the idea of wanting to fund our creativity.
Yeah.
We wanted to be able to build our own ecosystem and not rely upon Hollywood or anybody else to help make the ideas we want to make. So we started a
Mhm.
business around coffee, and that business funds all of our projects.
Yeah, risky business. And build our own ecosystem,
Mhm.
truly. Really be independent
Yeah.
and build our own. And, what better way to do that than have our own company that also encourages that independence in other creatives?
It's air roasted, and it's something we want you to try. We have 2 different roasts right now, Brainwave and Cosmic Flow. Brainwave is our new roast that actually you can pre-order it now. Thank you for rocking with us, and we hope you'll get a bag. brainjuicecoffee.com. Creative risk is the new currency. Last week we talked about fog into form and how that process of nurturing our idea and actually spending time within our idea helped us turn it into form in a real tangible project with the actress.
Mhm.
And that comes from us giving it time.
I was gonna say, like, some of these shows don't really get to see the form because the fog, they're trying to still sift through the fog, but, like, yeah, it's not really getting to the full form of what it could be,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah, I look at a show like Atlanta. Atlanta was a show that, from the first episode, I thought it was good, but where it went, you never really could have predicted that path.
Mhm.
How some of the shows were these one-off shows that didn't even, like, feel like they were real. How some of the through
Mhm.
point storylines that connected to our real world, but were slightly different or
Mhm.
variated. Um, it was very much, and Donald Glover said this when he first, him and his brother were first making the show, was there was a lot of Twin Peaks influence, and
Mhm.
we'd never seen anything like that. Like
Yeah.
one, never really seen this friend comedy really in that world, let alone a one with a majority black cast,
Yeah.
and black writers and everything. And so it was
Mhm.
such a cool experience to see
Yeah.
such a different type of black comedy,
Yeah.
or dramedy.
Mhm. Yeah, the Black experience in, like, multiple genres, I feel,
Yeah, yeah,
at times.
and
It was
lenses.
very creative,
Yeah.
engaging, like, like you said, "What is going on here?" But,
Mhm.
like, I can't like, this is so like, you're locked in, you're like, "What is going on?" Like, it just
Mhm.
was yeah, a standout show.
Yeah, and the 4 main characters were 4 different types of black people.
Mm.
You had Alfred, who was kind of the hood, rapper. You had Darius, who was, uh,
Very
very
spiritual,
spiritual, very open-minded,
quirky.
yeah. Then you had Van, who was just trying to figure it all out.
Mm.
You know, she had a vision, but obviously it didn't work out. She's just trying to figure it all out. And then you got Ern, who is this, you know, he is more of the educated black male who didn't like the path he was going down and kind of trying to prove he's not a failure.
Mhm.
And so these different stories and how they intertwine and how they interact with the world, it just had a lot of layers and depth. But it's one of these shows that the time that it was given allowed it to really, develop into something that, we'd never really seen before. And that was because of the risk it got to take.
Yeah. As you said that, I'm like, "Man, I really feel Earn now." Like, I relate to him way more now, like, looking back at the show.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's such I mean, it's so mwah. And then that Teddy, that character
Oh,
too,
yeah,
that was
yeah,
like
yeah. Michael
"Are they
Jackson?
here? Are they not?"
Yeah, the Michael Jackson character. Yeah. And so shows like that, the risk that they get to take, the time they get to take to nurture an idea and build it and grow over time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things, that Hollywood needs to live in more,
Mhm.
and allow that experience to showcase more. The safety is dangerous. It's just even taking your typical formula and just tweaking it a little bit, to give us something new. Somebody that's done that really well recently, which I don't give this show kudos like ever, but SNL.
Oh.
SNL, because they were kind of forced into it because a large amount of their cast left,
Mhm.
and so they had to adjust. And I think the
Yeah.
adjustment they made was smart because they did cast a lot of younger Gen Z, um, social media stars. They
Mhm.
cast a lot of comedians, from TikTok. They really dove into okay, let's figure out a long
Mhm.
term plan.
I love that they did that finally because that is a show that can keep up
Hmm.
with culture
Yeah, yeah.
and the shifts and what is going on in real time
Facts.
weekly. So, yeah, kudos for
Facts.
sure.
I agree. Yeah. So, I think what all this helps, like when we put it in a lens and try to see, okay, how does this as creators, how do we benefit from this article? How do we
Mhm.
benefit from this discourse around what Gen Z wants to watch? And I think for a lot of us independent creators, we are in a period of time, like I mentioned earlier, a golden age, because the main demographic of consumer, that Gen Z, they're the it's always the young adult generation that is the influential in entertainment.
Mhm.
And because their eyes are on YouTube, their eyes are on TikTok, their eyes are on these fast-paced, less traditional methods.
Mhm.
People have been doing it for a long time, but to put your high
Mhm.
quality project on YouTube and let it find its audience and figure out, monetization and whatnot from there, it's much more of an acceptable thing now than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're seeing the fruits of that labor.
Mhm.
This year alone, there were multiple, in the horror realm, multiple movies, that got picked up by studios
Mhm.
because a short version of it, was a hit on YouTube.
Yeah.
Curry Barker had a big one a couple months ago, and now he's got a film coming out next May on Focus Features. There's a writer, Joe Russo, who he wrote a short a couple years ago that was on YouTube, and it's in the last handful of years garnered 8.6 million views, and it
Mhm.
just got optioned by Jordan Peele and uh, Sam Raimi. They're gonna
Mhm.
make a movie out of it. Like, so we're in this period of time where you don't have to necessarily sacrifice your vision
Yeah.
because you're like, oh, I want to get this into Hollywood. There's your own path that you can take.
I think it's a great way to get noticed. If you can show that you have all these eyes, you have a lot of excitement around your work, then that's going to make someone want to give you a big budget to go even bigger.
Right.
So I think it's really smart, and I think there's really something to be said about people being chronically online,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
being able to put things in spaces where those people will see it.
Hmm.
Um it's a there's a lot of opportunity, I think, with
Yeah.
that. Mhm.
Yeah. Portrait of God was the name of that short. And so that makes me think about what we're trying to do with the actress. And as we're in the process of creating this project, we're thinking about, okay, what's the release plan look like? Is it straight to
Yeah.
festivals, or do we do YouTube? Like, what do we want to do? And as we're really talking about wanting to get just put it in places where people can see and to be creative with it, it's good to know that there is a craving for that from a large audience.
Mhm.
That there is people that are in the demographic that we are targeting. That's like, hey, we want it this way, or we want this kind of thing, or
Yeah.
we are looking for this authentic story, but that feels like us.
Yeah, I mean, and you're definitely still feeling that out, it's a benefit being independent
Hmm.
where, we can process, this decision and see which route we want to go. Yeah, and I think even with our short, it's risky in like a good way because we are making statements, we are making commentary in it.
Hmm.
And it'll just be interesting to see where we land with where we want to put it out to the world first.
Right.
So indie can take big risks, and yeah, we're gonna swing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing is we mentioned a little while ago is the ecosystem. You look at so many Rachel Sennott. We talked about her earlier with I
Mhm.
Love L.A. and what has benefited her outside of being a comedian and an actress, and she really built up
The
her
following.
influencer following. Um, it's really embracing the culture.
Mhm.
She embraced her culture, she embraced her audience, and that's how that developed into this this career for her. The same with Issa Rae, really lived in her skin.
Yeah.
And that's what's really working, these creators that are living in their skin.
Yeah. Going back real quick to what you're saying about Rachel Sennett, I think, with that show, when it was in pre-production, when she was pitching her ideas about stories, and then, they ended up saying, well, we want to kind of make it on off of just your life that you're talking about, which totally proves what we're talking about
Right, yeah.
and why it is resonating
Yeah.
because it's more based off of her life she's living in her skin, today.
Right. And so it is about, being authentic to yourself, really
Mhm.
building your world. You are a business, you are a brand, and you're operating and creating an ecosystem where people can consume all of your products, everything
Mhm.
about you. And so that's what we're trying to do here at Brain Juice Creative is we're
Mhm.
trying to own our IPs. We trying to
Mhm.
develop with the homies, and
Mhm.
we're trying to build our own ecosystem. And so we
Yes.
hope you are as well.
And not answer to nobody.
Yeah, and if you are building your own ecosystem, hit us up in the comments because we would like to know so we can support your ecosystem,
Mhm.
and maybe our ecosystems could cross over and become
Cross-pollinate.
Yeah. So yeah, for real though, if you're a creator listening to this, um, I think the thought process we're doing is don't try and chase what Hollywood's doing unless that's your path, unless that's the vision. You know, you do what's best for you. But they're trying to figure out what they're doing. You may already know what you're doing. So be specific, be authentic, and take that risk.
We have this one life. Take the risk. Run, burning on fire toward the life that you want.
Yeah. If you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review us. It helps a lot. If you're on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe button. Those things help the algorithm. Also, make sure you stick with us and watch all these episodes. We're constantly talking about the actress. You can follow that journey. We are building our table read right now, or sorry, building. We're putting together, organizing our table read right now so that we can take that to the next step of production. And also buy our coffee. brainjuicecoffee.com. Go
Get
there.
in the zone.
Go
with
there.
Our coffee.
Go there. Check it out. Buy it. Enjoy it. And that's it, man. Go create the life you want. Until next time.